Welcome to the running backs for week 8. Here again, Ricky Sanders with a working overlay now. You can see my name and RotoCurve wonderfully below me. And the guy whose overlay has been working the whole time, Jim McCormick, of course, here with me. But just because I'm bad with technology doesn't mean I won't be giving you some good advice for week 8. But before we get started, just want to let you know about this free trial that I will put up for you. Boom. This, of course, the rotocurve.com/free trial. It is everything included with a normal package in terms of NFL. You get the optimized DFS lineups for both DraftKings and FanDuel. You get the tools like DVP rankings, points per attempt, red zone. You get position rankings, projections, cheat sheets. You get all that wonderful stuff from all of our wonderful writers who are all a bunch of my best friends and some of Jim's too. So we strongly support this product. Jim, we got running backs this week, and why don't we get started with the chalk? Everyone's going to be on him, rightfully so. Devontae Booker.
Yeah, I mean, it's just too obvious, right? I mean, he was already looking like the more productive back as it was, right? Last week, he was trending towards being the majority shareholder of the team. He's the guy, right? He's the guy, the target this week. We've already talked about how susceptible the linebackers are for the Chargers, which continues to prove true. So yeah, he's just in a great situation. It's you asked me before the show, and I almost threw my hands up, saying like it's Devontae Booker and Jacquizz Rodgers for me in cash. I mean, Rodgers is fourth in yards from scrimmage since he took over. He has 31 touches per game. He's got 4 red zone touches per game. And we can imagine similar usage for Booker. Maybe not 31 touches, but 25 touches, 20-plus touches. Because here's the thing. There's no real inherent competition for work now, right? It's almost like the Melvin Gordon situation where what I mean, like they're different, but what I mean by that is that once he's over the hump of competition, there's not really anybody in the depth chart to take away meaningful touches. I don't think they've, talking with guys at ESPN, there was a scout that we talked to last year, and basically the Broncos felt kind of pigeonholed into re-signing Anderson. If you really think about it, they let him go long enough to let the Dolphins, sign that tender. That was all stuff. They basically just didn't want to lose their quarterback and their running back in the same offseason. So it was almost like they paid him for continuity. I really honestly think that Booker's the guy they want to groom, and he's going to have a real shot to be their feature back. So, yeah, long-winded answer, he's the guy.
Yeah, I mean, this is a difficult week where you got to kind of choose whether you're spending up at running back, receiver, quarterback. We already discussed I'm spending up a little quarterback. So I'm kind of hampered into that Jacquizz Devontae Booker grouping. And I don't want to say hampered because both of them are very, very good plays. But if you're spending down a quarterback, I still want to give other options where,
right.
If you're not sold on Rodgers, and I don't know why you wouldn't be. Again, this Oakland defense has allowed the 3rd most rushing yards. And this is a guy who's gone for over 250 yards rushing in 2 weeks. So Jacquizz Rodgers is a monster play. But if you're spending up or you even want to use the flex, I mean, how do we not love Spencer Ware again?
Right.
He came up exactly. He played the Colts he played the Saints last week, who are pretty much the best matchup for running backs. And if they're option 1A, then both the 49ers and the Colts are option 1B. I mean, the Colts have woken up sleeping giants like Lamar Miller, who was pretty average until he played them. Jordan Howard pretty much had his breakout against them. They've given it up to every single running back that they've played against, and they're susceptible to those who catch passes as well. Remember that Lamar Miller play where he caught one and ran across the edge? The Colts way up there. I think they've still allowed the most receiving touchdowns. Let me just confirm because I don't want to be talking out of my ass. Yes, 4 receiving touchdowns to opposing backs. Ware, of course, is used in the passing game. Reed would rather use him in the passing game than use any of his passing options, which is frustrating at times if you roster, the likes of Travis Kelce, but not for the owners of Spencer Ware. I mean, he's a workhorse back. He's a top 5 back, and he's priced just about there in fantasy at this point. And then if you're going a little higher, I mean, honestly, it's difficult to make a case against any of the top backs this week. I mean, I kind of want to – we should save this for tournaments because it's more likely to do it there. But like a guy who feels cash worthy this week is Christian Michael against those Saints. I mean, no one's allowed more rushing touchdowns. No one's allowed more total touchdowns to opposing backs. And Michael is above and beyond the guy here. Now, he's not involved in the passing game like a DeMarco Murray or like those guys, but I don't know if you need to be against the Saints. If we think that Russell Wilson's going to move the ball against them, if they get in the red zone, I mean, Christian Michael's going to be getting the carries. This feels like a game where he will end up with a touchdown, and he is a little touchdown dependent, but, 100 yards rushing, a few catches, 1 to 2 touchdowns certainly possible. And then how do we ever rule out David Johnson? So it's a really difficult week in terms of backs, but what I will say is if you stick with Booker and Rodgers and you spend up at receiver, I don't think you will be disappointed. Let's get to tournaments because I'm going way too in depth for cash here. We kind of narrowed down which guys we like. Let's talk about these top guys. Let's start. I'll tell you where to start here. How about Ezekiel Elliott?
Yeah.
Do you like him for tournaments? I mean, he kind of proved against the Packers that he's viable for anyone. I'm looking at a list of these top names, and it's like, if you want to be different, these guys are going to be under-owned because of Devontae Booker.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple factors going on with Philly. I mean, Benny Logan's still banged up. He's a big space eater. We saw the effect that had against the Redskins. The middle opened up. And it's almost like, like you said about how Elliott was kind of the outlier for the Packers rush defense. I think, it could be the case with the Eagles. They've been pretty much sound against everybody except the Washington that 1 week. I think this could be another situation where Elliott can it's just volume, right? And the price is high, but again, comparably to the receiver core, to the receiver player pool, you're still just spending $7,200 on DraftKings, for example, for Elliott. And the work's there, the floor's there. He's leading the league in rushing, so obviously it's all there. But, if I'm going to spend up in tournaments, I like him. I also like Matt Forte. He's almost has some cash appeal, but he's just, those other guys that we mentioned, are too cheap, basically. Booker and Rodgers are too affordable with similar kind of 20-touch workloads. I don't know what you think. It's hard for me to completely buy that all of a sudden Forte's back to being this 80% market share guy. I don't know what that was last week with him getting, the week before he had 35% of the snaps. And then it goes up to 83%. So it's difficult to tell what their game plan is, but I just think game flow-wise and the fact that they're favorites against a really bad rush defense in Cleveland, Forte's got to be interesting as well, just because as much as Powell could even still continue to eat into his work, Forte's still their guy in the goal line. So that multi-touchdown upside, which is what differentiates you in tournaments, I think that's still there for him. But, yeah, I mean, it's a situation, I agree. It's difficult to identify these guys because that lower middle tier is so attractive still, right? Even James White actually factors in tournaments for me. I mean, Blunt obviously continues to be the touchdown maker, but here's the thing. Last time they played the Patriots played the Bills last season, they dropped back to pass over 80% of the time, 84% of the time in Buffalo in week 2 last year. And that was because at the time Buffalo's pass rush was strong. Well, this year Buffalo's number 2 in pass rush pressure. They have one of the higher sack rates in the league. And they're doing it with honest pressure, which means, Joe, you're going to want to get a hold of their pass rush with the short pass. And I think they're going to pass to run, and I think that could really help White. So I think in tournaments, his ceiling's actually kind of fun, just in the sense that he's already had that red zone involvement. But, yeah, Elliott's a good choice, but I think Forte is the guy who I might even prefer to pay up for if I am going to pay a little.
Yeah, and Bilal Powell dealing with turf toe definitely helps his cause. Yeah. If you were worried about it, I mean, I know there are varying degrees, but I would put it as, 50-50 at best that Powell plays. Okay. So we might not even have to answer the question if it was for real or not, because he might just fall into the whole workload by default. Right. So I agree with you there. Other options for tournaments, I mean, we kind of went over Elliott. I think David Johnson needs to be covered this week against the Carolina Panthers. Their defense just not incredibly overpowering these days. So David Johnson, anytime he steps on a football field, is kind of like Julio Jones of running backs, where he's probably got the highest floor of anyone, especially with Elliott in theory in a difficult matchup. But I want to touch on Devontae Freeman against the Packers, because we talked about how Elliott's been the only one to bolster them. I'm looking at Pro Football Focus right now. They have one hole in their offensive line. Otherwise, it is very strong. We know Devontae Freeman's been able to get it done. And the thing I like about Freeman in this matchup is even if he's running into a brick wall, which is certainly possible, they use him in the passing game, and now that's just him in the passing game. I mean, I don't know if you disagree here, but I think we could be looking at 7 to 10 targets out of the backfield for Freeman, especially if their running game isn't working early. So Freeman is a guy who might not even need more than 50 to 60 rushing yards to have a monster day, especially on the full PPR sites. So him and Forte are around the same price. I would say that Forte has the higher floor because I'm not really sure which Green Bay defense is going to show up or which Devontae Freeman. But I think for tournaments, him by himself, Kalachi kind of had a funny line to me in our chat today. He said I would use Devontae Freeman against the 85 Bears if Tevin Coleman wasn't playing. So I kind of have to agree with him there that Freeman's just so talented. But looking at other guys, I mean, Giovanni Bernard against a defense that's allowed, I think it's the third most rushing touchdowns. Let me confirm, 8 touchdowns for Washington. You look at that snap count again last week. I know Hill had that outlier, what was it, like a 60-yard touchdown run. But yeah. Giovanni Bernard, 33 snaps to Hill's 21.
Yeah.
So he's, kind of working it. He's even becoming more of the featured back. I mean, whereas he's getting more of the carries as well as more of the receiving type stuff. So that is definitely an interesting situation to watch. I'm kind of watching this Theo Riddick situation closely. I know Houston was just torched. Who did Houston just play that had a duo of backs? It slipped my mind. But I know they were just torched by someone, and if Riddick's back and healthy, I mean, 9,900 is not enough for the guy who led the running back position in terms of receptions last year, especially on the likes of DraftKings and Fantasy Draft where you get that full point PPR. So, I think people may have forgotten just how explosive he could be, even in a part-time role. So I'm not worried about him. And the last guy that I want to mention is Latavius Murray. At 8,800 on Fantasy Draft, so I would guess on DraftKings.
48
Let's see. It's got he's probably in the 4. Let's see. I'm still on FanDuel, 6,200, still affordable, but I know that DraftKings price is nice. It's 4,500 for a guy who's carrying the load against a Tampa Bay defense that's really susceptible to the run. Again, I mean, if we think that Derek Carr and the offense is going to move the ball, Latavius Murray is touchdown dependent, which is why I would only use him in tournaments. But this is a guy getting their goal line work. I mean, both his touchdowns last week were inside the 10-yard line. So he's definitely receiving the work. I haven't seen the final, red zone touches. I know for some of the certain sites it comes out later in the week. But I would imagine that he carried the ball at least 75% of the time in the red zone. That duo of DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard just wasn't getting it done behind this offensive line. So, even mediocre talent's going to average 4 yards a carry behind this. Latavius Murray with that kind of workload, there's just too much opportunity to pass on for that price. Did we miss anyone, Jim? Because we kind of gave a decent amount of names, but it's one of those weeks.
Yeah, no, it is. You kind of have to canvas the whole spectrum of backs, but I think we've done well, especially with the cash guys. Again, we're kind of trumpeting the obvious, but sometimes that's just – it's like I think sometimes in analyzing it, whether you're an analyst like nerds like us or you're just any other guy out there playing a lot of fantasy, we all have a lot of information. I respect every gamer's opinion, and I think sometimes we kind of want to come up with a contrarian choice, even in cash. But sometimes it's just like, it's sitting right in front of you, right? I mean, Booker and Rodgers are just sitting right in front of you because those markets haven't accounted for their touch rates. So let's just use them. I mean, I am. Of course, there's some risk in following the crowd, but like you said, there's also some other guys you can pay up for a little bit that still offer cost certainty. Gio Bernard, even, these kind of guys in tournaments that really aren't that expensive, but still give you that profile that you want. So I think we covered a good spate of the elites, the middle, and then these basement guys that we love for cash.
Yeah, and I mean, it should be noted that the chalk has come through a lot this year. I mean, included in these millionaire maker winning lineups, there's been a lot of the guys who you're just like at the beginning of the week. Yeah. I think you have to use them included with some, outlier contrarian picks sprinkled in where you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, that probably would have been a good play.
Right. The millionaire makers make a lot of sense this year, which actually makes us all angry. But They do, though. They make a lot of sense, and then they just have one like Kenny Britt type guy in there who just makes it matter, you know. So
or Eddie Royal.
Right, exactly. It's that kind of year where you have the lineup constructed. There's some cost certainty to your chalk, and then you just pick that one guy. And so it's about identifying those guys, which is what we're trying to do with some of these tournament picks.
Yeah, I'd say focus on putting together the right concoction of players as opposed to going out on a limb for that one guy who's got a 1% chance of succeeding. This year it's mattered the combinations more than you being the mad genius who's the one to play it, like kind of like the FanDuel and DraftKings. It's the DraftKings commercial with Ed Norton. That sleepers out there, who's going to play him? It's just finding the right combination. So we will leave you with Ed Norton there, but don't forget to check out the rotocurve.com/free trial. Of course, you get everything included, those optimized lineups, which have been killing it lately with all the great guys behind the scenes, exclusive rankings, projections, cheat sheets, DFS tools, all that great stuff is included. Again, rotocurve.com/free trial. Stay tuned. We got a look at the receivers this week. I promise it won't be nearly as complex as the running back situation is this week.